It's time that we admit that this Boston Bruins team is good, as evidenced by the fact they are 3-2 without Charlie McAvoy and David Pastrnak in the lineup.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm Ian McLaren, and we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. On today's episode, we are going to discuss the fact that the Bruins are 3-2 over their past 5 games without both David Pastrnak and Charlie McAvoy in the lineup. And it's time to echo the sentiments of Fraser Minten, who said, "We are a good hockey team, and they're here to compete this season, pushing to be a playoff team." Looks like it right now, folks. Before we get into it, as well as looking at Saturday's game over the Devils, what's ahead this week on the schedule for the Bees, this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, I am your host, Ian McLaren. I am a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, and I've been covering this team and the NHL for various major outlets for nearly 20 years. And the big story for the Bruins lately is the fact that they have pulled off a winning record, well, all season long, to date anyways, and over the past 5 games, they've been without David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, and they are still winning. They are tied for the first place spot in the Atlantic Division. They have 34 points, which is level with the Tampa Bay Lightning. They do have 30 games played, which has kind of inflated their point total. If you look at point percentage, they are 4th right now in the Atlantic, but still much better than we expected them to be. And the fact that they've done so without David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy for the past handful of games really signals the depth, the commitment, and the buy-in that Marco Sturm has brought out from this squad. Over the past 5 games, Morgan Geekie leading this team with 9 points, including 5 goals and 4 assists. Just as impressive to me, though, is Elias Lindholm coming back from injury of his own, and he's got 8 points over his past 5 games. All assists, but still, he, along with Geekie, have been able to elevate the game of Alex Steeves, which is another testament to how Sturm has been able to push the right buttons with this team. For them to be without David Pastrnak and to put Alex Steeves up there, a guy who has been able to score at the AHL level, but never really stuck at the NHL level with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's been up on that line, and he's been great. Like, it's even raising questions as to who will come out of the lineup once Pastrnak returns. If you look up and down, you're getting contributions from everyone over these past 5 games. And yes, they've lost a couple of them, but you're playing without 2 of your franchise pillars in Pastrnak and McAvoy. You look at that coming into the season, it was this triumvirate of talent that you needed to get not career years out of, but back to at least regular levels of production from McAvoy, who missed a chunk of time last season after being injured at the Four Nations faceoff. Jeremy Swayman, who was just downright abysmal all season long. And then Pastrnak, who was his regular self, but still needed to keep it going and get another one of his prime years on the books. Swayman has been excellent so far this season. Pastrnak injured. He's now missed 5 games, and that, the longer it lingers, the more worried we become about what exactly is going on. Although he did skate late last week, we'll see if he accompanies them on their upcoming 3-game road trip. But they're getting contributions up and down the lineup over the past 5 games. In fact, only Sean Kuraly and Mikey Eyssimont, they're the only two who have played in all 5 games who have not recorded a point in that span. And when you look at, well, who comes out when Pastrnak comes back, you assume he's going to take his rightful spot on the top line with Geekie and Lindholm. The second line is rolling right now. Zacha, Mittelstadt, Arvidsson with 4 points. They have 10 points combined over the past 5 games. Zacha missed one of those. Arvidsson missed 2 of those. Tanner Jeannot, Fraser Minten, and Mark Kastelik all have chipped in, a point apiece. A couple points for Jeannot over that span. They're getting contributions up and down the lineup, and it begs the question as to whether you disrupt the chemistry on the third line, maybe bump Kuraly, Eyssimont, Husnudinov out of the lineup. Maybe bump Kastelik down to the fourth line so you have Jeannot, Minten, Steeves. Or Steeves, Kuraly, Eyssimont, Steeves, Husnudinov, Eyssimont. There are going to be options once David Pastrnak is back and healthy. But the point right now is that the first line is carrying them. Geekie, Lindholm have been playing very well. Steeves with 3 goals, 1 assist over the past 5 games. Pavel Zacha averaging a point per game in the games that he's played. Victor Arvidsson with 3 points in 3 games since he returned from injury. The defense is banged up. It's beat up, but they've been able to keep it together. And of course, Jeremy Swayman has been excellent. And Joonas Korpisalo has been pretty good as well over the last few games in which both McAvoy and Pastrnak have been out. Over the past 5 games, these two have kind of split time because Swayman was pulled in one of those games. Korpisalo actually has the better numbers since November 27th, and that's when it was learned that David Pastrnak was going to be out, Thanksgiving. Korpisalo is 1-1 in 2 starts. He came in relief in 1 game, and he's posted a .917 save percentage. Swayman is 2-1 in 3 appearances, 1 in which he was yanked, and he's got an .899 save percentage. So Korpisalo has actually been a bit better, allowing 1 fewer goal on 6 more shots against, or 5 more shots against, I should say. I know there's a lot of talk about it's time to bring DiPietro up. There may be some interest in him as there were scouts from the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Edmonton Oilers at a Providence game over the weekend. Likely that they're taking a look at the goaltender. Can they maybe parlay Korpisalo's recent strong play into getting rid of him so that they can recall DiPietro? That's probably the smarter play. All this to say, Marco Sturm has done a fantastic job with this team so far. And Fraser Minten, like I said off the top, said it best after the win over the Devils on Saturday that we'll talk about here coming up. He said, "We're a good hockey team. We're here to compete this season and push to be a playoff team. We have all the confidence in this room that we can do that." So great to have this young guy buying in. It shows that the leadership is working. Marco Sturm is pushing the right buttons, and we'll see what they can do coming up this week with a game beginning, or a road trip that begins on Tuesday against the St. Louis Blues. Before we get to that, we will touch back on the game against the New Jersey Devils, a win on Saturday. That's all coming up here as the podcast continues. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. Let's be honest, though. Getting tickets is usually the hardest part. And that's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. Prices include fees up front, which I love. No last-second surprises at checkout. I love the view from your seat as well. You know exactly what to expect when you arrive at the venue. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets. Every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go with Game Time. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. It's helped make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. And we've got an exciting announcement here on Locked On today. Look, you already live your team every day. Now you can take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Boston Bruins with no interruptions, members only Discord access, and more. All for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonbruins.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. So the Bruins last played on Saturday against the New Jersey Devils. It was a 4-1 win. Let's take a look at the storylines, the stats, and the significance of that one. Again, no Charlie McAvoy, no David Pastrnak. Can't stress enough what it means to pick up 2 points without those two guys in the lineup. I posted on socials after the game, like, the Bruins winning this season is fun. They have a winning record, but doing it without those two guys in the lineup is just downright impressive. And we've seen it before. Morgan Geekie scoring, Jeremy Swayman making the saves, and the Bruins come out with a 4-1 win against the Devils. Geekie scored for the 10th time in 9 games. Jeremy Swayman made 29 saves. I said earlier he had that .899 save percentage over his past few appearances. But in this one, he bounced back in a big way with a .967 save percentage, kind of erasing the memories of that poor performance the other night against the Detroit Red Wings, the game in which he was pulled. Geekie's 22 goals in 30 games are his second most in an NHL season, behind the 33 goals he scored in 77 games last season. So, like, take away last season, and he's already set a career high, or matched his previous career high in 30 games so far this season. And again, like I was saying, they were getting contributions up and down the lineup. They got the goal from Geekie, first line. They got a goal from Casey Mittelstadt, second line. One from Fraser Minten, third line. And then Andrew Peeke scored his first goal of the season into an empty net. And they've won consecutive games for the first time since that 7-game winning streak from October 28th to November 11th. Geekie said they're just doing whatever it takes to win. Sometimes they're not pretty. Tough to win in this league, no matter who you're playing, even a New Jersey Devils team without Jack Hughes. And kudos to everybody up and down the lineup, Geekie said, because this is a team that is proving that they are back. They're not back. They're not a Stanley Cup contender. But the way things are shaping up in the NHL this season, things are so even. There are so many kind of meh teams. There's only a couple, like, Stanley Cup true contenders, I think, in the NHL this season. If you look at the East, I mean, there's no real standout favorite in my mind. You have the Capitals, the Hurricanes, number 1, 2 in point percentage, the Penguins and Flyers. And when you talk about Marco Sturm being a Jack Adams candidate or in the conversation, you also have to look at Dan Muse and Rick Tocchet. The Tampa Bay Lightning had been rolling until they've lost 3 in a row. Out west, I think you have the obvious Stanley Cup favorite right now in the Colorado Avalanche. I'd probably put the Dallas Stars at number 2, and then it's wide open out there as well. Wide open in the East, wide open in the West, after the Avs, probably the Stars. You get into the playoffs, and literally anything can happen. Think back to 2019. The Bruins were not favored at all to go far, but they benefited from Columbus upsetting the Lightning, and they were able to go on a run. You get McAvoy back, you get Pastrnak back. Who knows what this team could do? I'm not saying they're, again, Stanley Cup contenders, but they're definitely in the playoff mix at the moment. And you're getting this kind of production out of Morgan Geekie. This is like found gold right now. They were lucky to get that 33 goals out of him last season, and they weren't able to do anything with it. He's getting even better, even more dangerous, and he's the kind of guy who could come up huge in a playoff series. You should not be thinking about selling at this point, I don't think. You look at the retool that they underwent last season, picking up, they got a bunch of young guys that they can build on in the future, like James Higgins, of course. Will Zellers is looking really nice. He scored a highlight reel goal the other night. You have Dean Letourneau, Will Moore, who are looking pretty good for BC. Like, you have some young prospects that you've accrued, still some guys who are growing in the AHL. That's, Lysell, Poitras, those guys still should get a shot at some point. You have some 4 first-round picks over the next couple of years, and you were able to pick up a guy like Casey Mittelstadt, who's proving to be an effective second-line player for you on a pretty reasonable deal. The Bruins, I think, should not be considering right now selling, because you're in prime spot to challenge for the playoffs. And when you get McAvoy and Pastrnak back, you'll be even better for it. If you think about this team and health-wise this season, they haven't really had their optimal lineup out. And I think they're kind of finding it at this point. If you get McAvoy back, you get Yoki Haru back, you get Pastrnak back, of course, then you start to see the makings of a pretty good team. With the way the first line is shaped, second line's getting chemistry, as is the third line. Maybe Corrali, Acimont can come out when Pastrnak is healthy to keep Steeves in the lineup. You still have guys rolling at the AHL level. Fabian Lysell's on fire, could come up at some point. You'd think Matt Poitras is worthy of a recall at some point as well. Things are looking all right for this team. Organizationally, they did some hard work last season by ripping off Band-Aids, sending some guys away. You could argue that you put Brad Marchand back on this team the way he's playing from Florida, and they'd be, even better. But that was a decision that was made kind of mutually and maybe in the heat of the moment. But for right now, the Bruins beat a good Devils team. Point percentage wise, they're right in the mix with, playoff contenders. If you look at points wise right now, they are second in the Atlantic. But if you look at point percentage wise, you stack them in the Eastern Conference, they are on the outside looking in. .567 point percentage, just behind Detroit and New Jersey. And that, again, is without McAvoy, Pastrnak. Bring those two guys back, and maybe they can challenge for a top spot in the Atlantic even. Like, you look at Buffalo, Ottawa, Toronto, Florida. Those are your bottom 4 teams in the Atlantic right now in terms of points and point percentage. There's a real opportunity here for the Bruins to take advantage of that. I mean, the Leafs might not be a playoff team. The Senators are struggling. The Panthers probably will jump up when Matthew Tkachuk and Alexander Barkov come back. But who knows about the Red Wings? Who knows if the Canadiens can keep going? I think the Lightning, Canadiens probably will stick in the top 3. You might have 5 teams coming from the Metro, so you're going to have to grab a top 3 spot in the Atlantic in order to make the playoffs. And it's a very real possibility for the Boston Bruins. They've got a big schedule coming up before the Christmas break, beginning with a 3-game road trip. We'll tee up what's coming up for this team here as Locked On Boston Bruins continues. NFL Sundays move super fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. The receiver gets hot, defense tightens up, the momentum flips after a turnover, and FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player props that update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and so much more. Keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. So up here, it's beginning to look a lot like the holidays. It is covered in snow. My lawn is. It is minus 23 degrees Celsius this morning with the wind chill. It's only December 8th, still a couple weeks until Christmas actually begins. Or winter actually begins, I should say. And the Bruins have a ton of games remaining on the schedule before the holiday break, which runs from December 24th through the 26th. Coming up this week, it's a light week with only 2 games on the schedule. They will be traveling to St. Louis for a rematch with the Blues coming up tomorrow night. That's an 8 p.m. Eastern start. They just beat the Blues 5-2 last week, of course. And they'll be looking to keep that going. They will also be taking on the Winnipeg Jets on Thursday. A Winnipeg Jets team that struggling without Connor Hellebuck. They're only 3-6-1 in their last 10. So both of these games are fairly winnable. Although St. Louis has won 2 in a row following the loss to the Boston Bruins. And got bounce back goaltending from Binnington and Joel Hofer over the weekend, even though they're minus 27. Anyways, we'll tee that all up coming up tomorrow when we update the power rankings and preview tomorrow night's game. So that's this coming week in terms of weeknights. The Bruins then will be going to Minnesota to take on a very good Wild team before coming back 5 games at home heading into the holiday break. They'll be hosting the Utah Mammoth, the Edmonton Oilers, the Vancouver Canucks, the Ottawa Senators, and the Montreal Canadiens. So 2 big divisional matchups in there. Rivalry game against the Vancouver Canucks. The Oilers, of course, always dangerous, always must watch. And then you have the Utah Mammoth. So that's 8 games on the schedule between December 9th, and December 23rd. 8 games in 14 days, and 5 of them at home. Hopefully, here's what I'm thinking. Maybe they keep Pastrnak, if he's not 100%, off the ice through this road trip to have him back to 100% for those 5 games heading into the break. Charlie McAvoy, it's going to be still some time before he's back. We learned last week, and I talked about this on Friday, that he lost a ton of weight after undergoing surgery. He can't eat solids right now. And so it's not just his face feeling better, but he needs to get his weight back up, his conditioning, his strength. So it could be maybe another month before he's back in the lineup. Pastrnak, though, he is skating. There's been no placement on IR. If they can get him back for at least those 5 games against those tough teams prior to the break, that would be great. Maybe he can join them on the road for the game against Minnesota, but maybe shut him down for those 2 games if he's not 100%. Don't push it. Stay at home. Do some skating at Warrior on his own so that he is optimized for the pre-holiday push. And then a fairly busy January. Don't forget, this season's schedule is very compressed because of the Olympic break. And the Bruins can't afford to stumble through January, or else they're going to drop some points, and it'll be very difficult to make that up in March, which will also be rammed because of the holiday break, or the Olympic break, I should say. So that's what's coming up for the Bruins this week. 2 games, Tuesday, Thursday. We'll, of course, preview those, bring you all the storylines, stats, and the significance. Right now, second in the Atlantic by points, but when it comes to point percentage, they're top 4. You're likely going to need to finish top 3 the way things are looking, because the Metro is seemingly the much better division right now. 4 teams over 600 in point percentage. All 8 teams at 500 or better. The Rangers bottom with a 548 point percentage. That would put them 5th in the Atlantic right now. And they're currently 8th in the Metro. Only 7 points separate first and 8th in the Metropolitan Division in the conference. The Sabres, pretty much the only team out of it, but Florida, Toronto, Ottawa, they're reeling at the moment. And even New Jersey, the team the Bruins beat the other night, they've lost 5 in a row. Very topsy-turvy East. And there's an opportunity for the Bruins to grab hold of a playoff spot and not let go. Thank you again for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. Tomorrow, we'll update the Atlantic Division power rankings. We'll preview the game against the Blues. Make sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Boston Bruins on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, so you get all the latest episodes. You can also follow along on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. Also, did Locked On Bruins make your Spotify Wrapped? Prove it on social media to secure a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Tag our national Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform, and we'll drop you a code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayers Club to get your favorite show ad-free and exclusive access to the members-only Discord channel, of which I will be an active member. For those of you who are on video, we send you now to the 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen the NHL Game Night show on the Locked On NHL feed. Again, check out the Everydayer Club at lockedonbruins.supercast.com. This is all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Make it even stronger by joining the Everydayer Club. Take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you again here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.